right, we are live. This is the IPS Evening Deprogram for August 25th, 2024. We missed Infinite Plane Saturday. I was working on the publication, preparing the conference, and other things. And I'm reaching out to a number of prospective speakers. There are a number of people I think can speak authoritatively on the fakery. And that's the common denominator. The entire idea behind the AutoHoax Con is to get a lot of people together who are on the same page, who aren't trying to regurgitate tired old truther myths. We can move past that. All right, we are joined here by the HBIC, Ted Stryker, Osher, Ollie Goering, Zin Bellis, Diana South. We'll give a few more minutes for the rest of the raft to arrive. One of the things I wanted to talk about tonight is the Mission Impossible series. I haven't actually watched any of them, but last night I started watching, I think it's the latest one called Dead Reckoning. And we often talk about the symbolism built into these movies, which are attached to actors who play archetypal roles movie to movie to movie. And Tom Cruise is interesting for a few reasons. His name is a big clue as to his world stage purpose, the symbols he carries, namely the double cross, the symbol of a resurrection, second coming stuff, the hanging man. He's always hanging off of things, buildings, planes, towers, soon the space station. But I'm watching this new movie, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning, and it begins with this, and these aren't spoilers, I'm only half an hour into it. It begins with this submarine scene and some kind of a AI which can only be deactivated or activated with these two keys. And these keys look like crosses. So the two crosses have to be put together. So you have this double cross or twin cross. And the name Thomas, or Tom, like Tom Cruise, Thomas means twin, Cruise, cross. Again, a lot of twin cross symbolism throughout all of his movies, which we've poured over. But I'm barely into this movie, and it's reiterating a lot of the same. And it's in the opening scenes where these individuals in this closed room are talking about this AI and how it could basically hijack reality. And it's kind of interesting to me in the sense that it sounds like they're describing AI as it's used to create deep fakes in the news. And obviously that's probably what it's referring to. And Tom Cruise's character is a deep fake himself, wearing these hyper-realistic masks. But it raises a lot of interesting points. And I've been taking some notes. So there will be a review on that. Following this, I'm going to probably go watch Megaopolis. I want to revisit this since I found the trailer. So this is the intro scene to Megaopolis, Francis Ford Coppola. Now, it begins with a satellite, Russian satellites falling from the sky. Now, first note here, you see the Statue of Liberty. And the Statue of Liberty has figured in a lot of predictive programming with the Paris Olympics opening, where it was busted up, the Mountain Dew Liberty Chill, where the crown has fallen off. This has been a reoccurring symbol here, of course, the new Planet of the Apes, which makes famous the image of the Statue of Liberty flooded up to the waist. But it begins with the Statue of Liberty, and look in the background, space junk.
When does an empire die?
When does an empire die? I saw this trailer in the theater. Very 9/11-y, towers. Everything about it looks like predictive programming. And interestingly, the script was meant to be produced pre-9/11. And the director said that after 9/11, it wasn't the right atmosphere in New York for Megaopolis. Now, my contention is that Megaopolis is likely a reference to this Tower of Babel concept we've been describing. And I've been saying that the Tower of Babel is falling in stages. And it's all symbolic. The sinking of the Titanic. the sinking of the Twin Towers, and soon the sinking or the falling of the ISS. I think that's the order. And I've been saying this for some time, and I have a lot of reasons for saying so. But I think symbolically it's a contiguous event, and they're part of the same. And the falling of the space station represents the dissolution of the international solidarity. The international solidarity above, the one language, the Tower of Babel, man reaching from Earth into the heavens. So the Megapolis, as a Tower of Babel reference, opening up with the Statue of Liberty and stuff falling from the sky, seems to lean in that direction. And I've suggested, too, that the fall of the ISS would be like the next 9/11. And interestingly, this script was delayed because it not only wouldn't have been appropriate post 9/11, but he had to take out an entire scene, which was very 9/11-y. And this was talked about in this Vanity Fair article. So now, looking at this, we have the Russian satellites falling from the sky, talks about the empire dying. And now let me jump on over to Megapolis. Gets a 7-minute ovation. Russian satellites have landed on the city. The screen goes black. So it opens up with Russian satellites falling, screen goes black. And now, a day before this article came out, or rather a few days after, a dead Russian satellite broke into more than 100 pieces in space. ISS astronauts forced to briefly take shelter as Russian satellite suddenly breaks up in orbit. And let's add to that, on 1/19, January 19th, 2024, the movie ISS came out. I went to go see it. It was terrible. Terrible movie. But communications with the ground fail, and they receive a message from the U.S. government indicating the Russian military has initiated a nuclear attack on the U.S. and orders them to take control of the ISS by any means necessary. So what do we have here? The ISS movie comes out on 1/19, which I believe is a reference to Genesis 11:9, the Tower of Babel falling. Donnie Darko comes out on 1/19. Many other references to that number and this theme. But specifically, this movie coming out on that date has some significance, but Russia is a huge part of it. Russian satellite explodes in space. ISS astronauts take cover. The movie Megapolis opens up, and this is again a movie that would have contained 9/11 predictive programming, opens up with the Russian satellite exploding, and as you can see here, the trailer, Russian satellites falling to Earth with the talk of an empire falling.
When does an empire die? Does it?
When does an empire die? Very interesting stuff here. And we were talking about, this was a couple years ago, Pluto and Pluto's return, and how it has returned to the place where it was during America's founding, and how this generally signifies the fall of an empire. And the founding of the nation 1776 corresponds to the One World Tower, which is 1,776 feet high, but also corresponds to the building of the Tower of Babel, if you go by the Masonic calendar and their lore, about the tower's construction beginning in 1776 AL. So all of this is really tightly wrapped. I think there's a message being conveyed here. I'm going to have to go watch Megapolis, hopefully tomorrow. But this is on my to-do list, and I'll bring with me a notepad. The one that I brought for Civil War, which was mostly unused because that was barely even a movie. Okay, let's see who is in chat here. Lando Rock. Quays, Tomanoid 3 says Megapolis, September 27th. Morpheus doing the voiceover, of course. Okay, that's Morpheus. God of Dreams. So that hasn't come out yet. Okay, that'll be the day before the Auto Hoax Con, which is going to go well, I believe. I'm planning it. I'm pre-recording segments, going to get some guests involved, and we're going to define this. We're bringing the AH-92824 Planet Killer asteroid down to the world stage, and that will be the day of impact. So look forward to that. Roxy W, thank you for joining. 777, Lean Dion. Okay, we have about 50 in here, so that's a large enough raft to proceed. There's lots in development, including these. Just if you're looking at the screen, or if you get the newsletter, I'm producing these circular stickers with the IPS logo. This one is Ips Deprogram. I have several variants of it, as you'll see. So you can look forward to that. The IPS Insider is scheduled to be published as a digital publication on September the 1st. And then the first of every month from there on out, I'll release it as a digital. And I'll be releasing it in print as I can, but the priority is to get the material out there and to get the thing circulating. And print on demand will probably happen within the first couple of months. And then by that time, I expect we'll have stacks to distribute. But we have a plan, and everything's going according to it. The infinite plan. Okay, I'm scrolling through my topics. Someone asked me if I followed Jungle Surfer. And I wanted to mention that, yes. And I'm likely going to try to get him to speak at the AutoHoax Con himself. I think I first heard of him in 2017-ish when he put out a video saying that all the NFL players were women or something, and it just caught my attention. I thought it was strange, hilarious, interesting, but you have to listen to his argumentation on this. But Jungle Surfer is one of those who've been, I would say, one of those first to recognize just the scale of the fakery. Definitely a channel worth following. I'll have to catch up with him. A Telegram messaging app CEO arrested in France. And then you got the Tates arrested. And all their little tater tots defending them. Like, fake or real, even if all of the allegations against the Tates are fake and it's all just a setup, if you listen to anything they say, it's still, they're pretty indefensible. But more drama. But it's consistent with what I've noticed. There seems to be a pattern of right-wing, far fringe right-wing right now eating itself, like cannibalizing. They're eating their own. Candace Owens is being roasted by Milo Yiannopoulos in the worst ways. Nick Fuentes, too. It's getting ugly and desperate on the far fringe right. And I'm wondering if this is a controlled demolition. And taking down Andrew Tate, a paragon of toxic masculinity at this time, would be very consistent with what we've been seeing here. Boeing's rescue by rival SpaceX is embarrassing and ill-timed. So the Calypso, named for the nymph that keeps Odysseus stranded, is not going to be compatible. They're not going to go back down with it. They have to use a SpaceX capsule of some kind. So SpaceX is going to save Boeing. Boeing is kind of a joke at this time, synonymous with disaster and failure. And the movie Fly Me to the Moon contained some predictive programming. It had an explosion, fire, and they mentioned Boeing. So there's going to be some disaster with Boeing, and this was done in the context of the Apollo 1 disaster being discussed, where the 3 astronauts were immolated. So I'm predicting, based on predictive programming, the disaster, the ongoing disaster with the Calypso thing, is going to happen in early 2025. Now, if you look at the Space Odyssey and the Odyssey, Odysseus, trapped by Calypso, these astronauts on their Space Odyssey, trapped by Calypso, when Odysseus escapes, the first thing he does is he stops somewhere and he meets the Cyclops. Polyphemus or something. And after outsmarting the Cyclops, he taunts him. And they get boulders thrown at them as they sail away. And then the Cyclops curses Odysseus in the name of his father, Poseidon. So looking at this as a parallel, Odyssey, Space Odyssey, Calypso, I think that when they're finally able to escape or head back down to Earth, there's going to be some kind of equivalent incident here. Not quite sure what. I'm thinking asteroids, space junk. And I know there is some kind of Poseidon weapon the Russians have, but anyway, it's all on the table. Just trying to predict the next Illuminati playing card, the next plot twist. Tomadoid says they're stuck until February 25th. Ted Stryker says Butch and Sonny stuck in space, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid relation. Yeah, something. There has to be. And something else to consider too. We said there was going to be disaster before it launched, and there were a number of delays. And then when they finally did take off, it happened to correspond timing-wise with the Titan submersible, which was the sacrifice ritual of the solstice before, where the individuals going down in the submersible imploded. And I said this was kind of like a Challenger, an inverted Challenger explosion or disaster. But instead of going up and exploding, they went down and imploded. And I'm looking at this event as possibly a repeat or some kind of disaster. Well, the stage has been set. The stage has been set for a disaster. And the dragon may be a clue here. And we'll see. But we have had some premonitions. If you recall, a few years ago, in 2020, January 20th or so, Elon Musk did a abort test where they had the dragon sacrifice the Falcon, and they had a couple of dummies on board. We'll see. But I'm getting the sense that we're due for some kind of fiery sacrifice. And again, one reason for saying so is fly me to the moon. Yeah, Elon Musk to the rescue. Some people do believe he's a hero and a savior, that he saved free speech, which is laughable, because free speech means nothing if you're mind controlled. And he's part of the mind control department of the PSYOP entertainment complex, which is the space program, which is all about controlling your inner space through the creation of a world view, a carefully constructed digital simulation that overlaps the world, becomes a hive mind of sort. It's our commons, but then they can manipulate it because it's rooted in belief, not always knowledge, as far as the big picture, how reality testing doesn't really happen at our level. So we're kind of trusting who we want to trust. Choose your own apocalypse. It's super subjective. And they don't care what you believe, as long as you believe it's all going to end badly soon. So we'll look forward to that. Now, we talked about the monkey stuff, and perhaps I should reiterate this really quick here, because there have been some significant developments that kind of reiterate what I've been saying. For example, there was an attorney who was attacked by a monkey at some Supreme Court. Let me see if I can find that one. Monkey attack. And there was a monkey loose in Ohio. But I think there's something here, and it does add to what we have been saying. Monkey attack. I have to specify, because apparently it's a common thing. Lawyer attacked by monkeys at Supreme Court. Finds their clinic lacks medicines. So this was on August 22nd. Supreme Court campus on Wednesday. She was entering the premises, and she was attacked. She didn't get any care. Not immediately. But what's the significance here? Well, I'll get to that after we go over the monkey god in the meta script, and you'll see how this all correlates. I'm suggesting this is a concerted message. It's propaganda. It's predictive programming, all of the above. It's concerted for sure. Here's an example. On 8/14, monkeypox is declared an emergency at the WHO. 8/14, Bad Monkey is released. I started watching that. It's a Vince Vaughn. I haven't really seen anything yet other than a comedy, but I'm still, again, I'm just watching it, paying attention to the bigger story. But the timing of the release is significant. On March 11th, on 3/11 of this year, significant date there, Monkey Man was released. And this is about a boxer who wears an ape mask, and he gets beaten. So here's a common theme: tortured monkeys, captive monkeys. So this individual is a human punching bag, and eventually he fights back, and it's about his rage. Well, it was produced by Jordan Peele, and Jordan Peele did Nope, which is about the UFO, but it was inspired by the George Floyd spectacle, the spectacle of his death. Nope begins with a killer chimp. So again, killer chimp, angry monkey, bad monkey. You see the pattern? 90-foot tall statue of the monkey god Hanuman erected in Houston. Black Myth Wukong, a game where the player is the monkey god, has a record-breaking 1 million concurrent players. So you had 1 million people praying to the monkey god. 1 million people fully immersed in a simulation where they are the monkey god as the statue, 90-foot tall statue, is erected. And Return to the Planet of the Apes 2024. So we have been seeing these images, we've been shown these images of the Statue of Liberty busted up, Planet of the Apes references in the Paris Olympics, and now we have an ape, 90-foot tall ape standing there. Something is being conveyed here. Obama spoke at the DNC, and he's spoken before about his Hanuman idol. He has a small statue, a small idol of the monkey god in his pocket, and it's always with him. Now, I suspect, and this is why I think that the monkey attacking the lawyer makes perfect sense, that it connects to the rage virus concept displayed in 28 Days Later, which was written by the director of Civil War, and 28 years later is in production. The theme in this is a rage virus that they catch from apes. It originates in apes. I believe they force the apes, Clockwork Orange style, to watch CNN and violent news nonstop, and then they become increasingly ragey, and then it becomes like some kind of a transmissible disease. So they introduce the concept of the rage virus. The significance here is that Civil War is about a rage virus. It's about a bunch of people mad by what they see on TV, and it has a very strong message regarding the anti-media attitude of what you'd consider to be the right, whereas the movie conveys that the mainstream media covering the war in a very sympathetic way. They're kind of the heroes of the story. And if you haven't seen Civil War, it's barely a movie. Just watch the trailer. But basically, Kamala Harris kills Donald Trump at the end. But to continue here, the theme is the rage virus causes people to become violent, and the rage is contagious. Well, how can a rage virus be contagious? Oh yeah, Twitter, owned by Musk, X, disease X. So I've been suggesting that the placeholder virus of disease X the WHO has been speaking about for some time is really the mind virus that will be transmissible through social media, and it'll pass on from violent militant to violent militant, and this is what we're being prepared for. And that's what the monkeypox is really about. That's what the bad monkey theme is really about. So now you see a lawyer attacked by monkeys. Yeah, it sounds like Mad MAGAs, because they're going to go after the judge. Who knows? You see the theme here, though, is somewhat reiterated. And at the same time, there's more I haven't even added to this. There's an HBO special that just came out called Chimp Crazy, about some pet hoarder, I believe. And the theme here is PETA launches an investigation after a former Hollywood chimp named Tonka goes missing. I think what we're seeing here is this theme of the captive apes about to be released. And this is also a meme that's being spread through other means. For example, there's a monkey loose in Ohio. Now, I'm suggesting that this monkey here is, if it's real at all, is a crisis actor. Is there really a monkey loose? People report sightings. It doesn't matter necessarily, because it is adding to this general theme. I think that this is the immersive echo chamber effect. Okay, let me catch up on comments. An immersive echo chamber effect is what I call it when you cannot help but run into a meme that they are forcing into the collective psyche. Wherever you turn, they did it to us with Taylor Swift. They do it all the time. Okay, continuing, joined by Art Bell. Let's go, Bayonet. This is where it's at. Pippi Langstruff says up. Adaptivia. Angst G says, one of the cable channels aired the Matthew Broderick monkey movie last night. Are you kidding me? Okay, this is a movie from 1983 called... Oh, no. Project X. I'm thinking War Games. Matthew Broderick came out in 1983. 1987 is Project X. And I said Disease X relates to the apes, the rage virus. Well, here you have a movie about experiments done on monkeys, and it's called Project X. And we've been talking about this for the last few days. So if they're showing this on TV, then yeah, that's kind of strange. Tom103 says, Elon may create the rage virus with the Neuralinked monkeys. 12-hour Lex Friedman Elon Neuralink interview had multiple Kubrick references in the first few minutes. Didn't bother with the rest. Okay, so there we have the Clockwork Orange reference I was making. I was just throwing it out there, but now that I think about it, it probably makes sense here. Lynn Dion says, the Stephen King movie out next year is also something about monkeys. It's very concerted, but what really sinks it for me, that it shows that this is synchronized entertainment with news, is that on the very day the monkeypox comes out, you get Bad Monkey, 90-foot tall statue, while 10 million people are plugged in to some video game, a virtual reality scenario in which they are the monkey god. And yes, Project X coming out at the same time on TV. This is typical. This is exactly how this thing works. Again, there are no coincidences on the world stage. So this article here, IO Man distributed sadistic videos showing torture of monkeys. Did he work for Neuralink? Probably not, but the theme is the same. IO Man just sadistic. This sounds crazy. I haven't read the article, but I saw the headline, and yeah, this is horrible. If true. Okay, continuing. I saw this phrase by the Health Ranger. Now, Health Ranger is a shill, or he's insulated and he's a fool. I don't really know which. Doesn't matter to me. But he said something that made sense. He used the phrase narrative neutralization. And this is something that we have seen firsthand. So I'm going to read his tweet. He said, recognize what you were watching. Days after the assassination attempt on Trump, it was the largest news headline, and then you had CrowdStrike change the news headlines. Fast forward a few weeks, and the corporate media is fawning over the inauthentic DNC. What you're watching is narrative neutralization. And his point being here is that, and a lot of people have noticed this, nobody cares that Trump was shot. Nobody cares that an AR-15 pierced his earlobe on the top of his ear. And I'm seeing a ton of people just blatantly calling it a hoax. And they're not even digging too deep into it. Like they're not saying that the fireman's death was fake too. But there are a lot of people just calling it a hoax. They just don't believe it. But the trouble with their perspective is that they may know this is a hoax or believe it to be a hoax, but they're not recognizing the extent of the hoaxery in any way. It's like, it's not even accurate to call it a hoax. This is an event, a historic event, that was agreed upon and performed by both sides. It wasn't done to elevate. I mean, this is all just, again, it's WWE. But they don't have the right context for them to call it fake with any kind of authority. It doesn't make any sense from them. This is a topic we've had a number of live streams about, how aliens have been repackaged and sold to the right wing as demons, and how the left worships science, the progressive utopianism embraces aliens as the new angels, and the right has been consistently inundated with messages that these are demons. From Tucker Carlson to Alex Jones to now Peter Thiel, who says if advanced alien civilizations have faster than light travel, then they must evolve into demons or angels. Now, let me play this clip. This is Peter Thiel. Isn't he a vampire? Like, doesn't he drink bags of blood or do transfusions? I'll look into that. I'll fact check that in a moment. But listen to this.
I always wonder, I'm about to give, but what the alien civilization can be like. And if you have faster than light travel, if you have warp drive, which is probably what you really need to cover interstellar distances, what that means for military technology is that you can send weapons at warp speed and they will hit you before you see them coming. And there is no defense.
Anyway, I don't live in the NASA-tology science fiction universe. This is all fake to me. But I want to get to the point where he says that the aliens have become demons. And this is Joe Rogan. His mind is blown. He thinks we live in a simulation. By the way, I'm pretty sure that simulation theory is a planted narrative so that those who see through the fake news start thinking that reality is fake instead of discerning between the fake news and the objective reality and then establishing a firmer grip on reality. No, they want to push you off the edge. Okay, here it is.
Is the individuals, they might not be perfect, they might be demons, doesn't matter, but you have a demonic totalitarian control of your society where it's like you have like parapsychological mind meld with everybody, and no one can act independently of anybody else. No one can ever launch a warp drive weapon, and everybody who has that ability is in like a mind meld link with everybody else, or something like that. You can't have libertarian, individualistic free agency.
Right.
And then
Right. I like how you can say literally anything. And Joe Rogan will say, right. Everything gets a pass. Tucker Carlson does it too. And I think it's kind of weak to not push back, but this is what they're doing. They're just propagating information. They're propagating memes. And I would say that Rogan is one of the lead proponents of simulation theory. And now that I think about it, looking back, The Matrix kind of sold truthers on the idea that they were seeing through at a deeper level. And they've been given these explanations for anomalies, and they've been given alternative interpretations of things to make them feel like they've escaped the Matrix. I mean, what a clever ploy. And it seems to have worked because they don't know. I mean, we've checked it. The pharmaceutical company that manufactures the blue pills also does the red pills. It's just a candy coating. It's a little bitter, actually. The blue is the candy coating over what is ultimately a black pill. But the red pillars have all been deceived. And simulation theory, again, is a major distraction. And all this space talk doesn't impress me. Where is this even coming from? But again, listen to this part. He's talking about how the aliens are somehow demonic.
the aliens, it's not that they might be demons or angels. They must be demons or angels if you have faster than light travel.
Okay. Did that make sense to anybody? That if you travel faster than light, you must be demons or angels. Like, at some point, this science fiction is becoming fantasy, I guess. Neo-Nazi Nick Fuentes goes to war with Candace Owens for anti-Semitic crown. She was coming for our thing. Now, he makes a valid point, and I'm not going to play it because he's obnoxious, but Nick Fuentes is mad because Candace Owens is jumping all over the anti-Semite thing, which is his main thing, and she's doing it badly and making him look bad. And I understand, because I watched how she treated the story of JPL, Jack Parsons, L. Ron Hubbard, and Marjorie Cameron, and she had the most shallow take on it, clickbaity, engagement bait, shock value, but no depth. She didn't make a dent. You think this would cause some people to look at NASA and question. No. It was like, this is nothing. She just took some good information and threw it into the sea of irrelevance for some clicks, for a little bit of attention. It was kind of desperate at this point. I think she's just doing anything she can to try to seem relevant. And she's reaching for the bottom of the barrel here. And Nick Fuentes is already there. That's like his demographic. That's his market. And he doesn't appreciate her going for their thing. Okay, continuing. This DNC event supposedly had Beyonce on the bill. Now they're saying Beyonce was not scheduled. Now, the only reason why I think this is notable, and it raises a question here, is it possible that they push fake stories or deliberately allow fake stories to proliferate just to get the meme out there? For example, Robert De Niro didn't get kicked off of Twitter for threatening Trump. That wasn't his account. But the story went viral and it had some press releases pushing it, and then it got pulled. But for that period of time on that day where it would have been significant, it was there. Similarly, Beyonce wasn't scheduled to perform. However, the story went viral. Now, it's interesting to me because we talk about the predictive programming in the Super Bowl performances, the recent ones alluding to the headshot, but Super Bowl 47 was the 2013's so-called Blackout Bowl, where after Beyonce performed, it went dark for 33 minutes. Now, that entire event was encoded with symbolism and meaning, I'm sure, but the main point of it is Beyonce, Super Bowl 47. Now, here we are, DNC, for the presidency to see who's going to be number 47, and she's supposed to perform. And the blackout theme has been popping up here and there. The Mountain Dew pitch black, Paris going pitch black. Leave the World Behind has barely been out a year, not even a year yet, and it foreshadows this major blackout. And there's more to it. The 2013 Blackout Bowl was the same year that you had this, I think it was called American Blackout, which is basically like about a blackout across America, but it featured then President Obama. And in it, he gave a cameo, he gave a speech about how you need to listen to the government, etc., because there's a big emergency. And I thought that's interesting. So he's in a movie in 2013, year of the Blackout Bowl. He releases this Leave the World Behind, which is about this major blackout, and reiterates the same theme. But you have Obama kind of behind the scenes. But anyhow, you see this Super Bowl 47 alluded to here with Beyonce. Observing Reality says, don't forget how many people there are emotionally attached to the idea that they come from monkeys. Not too hard to convince them to behave like animals. Leo Pirate says, concurrent programming reinforcing the idea the users of X are monkeys infected with a rage virus. It's no surprise Musk's X is seen as a heavily right-wing website, ostensibly uncensored. Yeah, it's strategic. It's by design. I've said since he took over that X was meant to be the repository for all of the mind junk, just as he fills low Earth orbit with space junk. They're trying to make Musk the, I guess, perfect example of why we can't have one person get too much money and wealth, because they can pollute the commons of cyberspace, our shared mental space, and low Earth orbit or outer space. And they make this example so they can justify in the minds of the public taking this down. Like Musk must never happen again. Billionaires must never accrue this much power ever or influence again. You shouldn't be able to buy this much influence. They've been making this narrative palatable to the public where they're going to be complicit in the lockdown and censorship of the internet because disease X. And they'll say, now you might not be a problem just because you have X, but you're mentally healthy. But the mentally ill can't help but catch these mind viruses and act upon them. That's going to be their rationale. And what have the right-wingers been saying for the last 20 years of mass shootings? Mental illness. Donald Trump is complicit in this narrative. Nick Cruz, mental illness. Why is that? Because just like the argument they made for locking you down because you're a healthy super spreader, you're healthy, so you carry it to more people who aren't healthy, which causes more harm. They're going to say that if you don't mask your mind, if you don't vax your brain, if we don't censor the internet, then the world can't be safe because you're going to spread unhealthy mind viruses to people who cannot defend against it. And I also want to point out that the government gave you, not you, oh, they kind of did. I mean, I say everyone's programmed by default. The government has given society mind aids. They have stripped you of a mental immune system by design to make you programmable, triggerable, susceptible to mind viruses, so you feel helpless. Well, I don't want to catch this. I don't want to be a flat earther. Censor that website. I don't want to be a school shooter. Censor this. I don't want to be a right winger. Censor that. We're heading toward equilibrium. Catching up on your comments. Leo Pirate says, my favorite part about the Matrix trilogy is how it suggested that the rebellion only entered another level of simulation. The series also has heavy subconscious Gnostic messaging. 2 good points. First good point. The red pill, Trutherville demographic is in a subset of the mainstream. Just like Woketown is in a subset of Normieville. So we're all in Normieville. The question is, if you wake up, where do you go with it? Most people go to Trutherville or Woketown, which are contained within the universe of Normieville, within the universe of ideas. It's a closed system. So you've gone into a bunker. You've gone into a box. You didn't escape. Now, the second point you made about Gnostic messaging is huge here. I happen to think they have been selling truthers on simulation theory and Gnosticism so that they misinterpret predictive programming as messaging from the demiurge. There's a higher power influencing and causing synchronicities between the entertainment and the news. Like the entertainment is influencing what happens in the news in the future. Magical thinking. But if you listen to people who follow that train of thought, a lot of them will say they believe a higher power is at work and they don't mean God. So obviously that's Gnosticism. And I think this is a misdirection line so that they mystify the news instead of demystify and deconstruct it, which is what we are doing. Deprogram Truth says, good night, catch up tomorrow. Thank you for joining. Inks G says, do you think Nick Fuentes calling Tucker Carlson a Fed was a fake? Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Like Baked Alaska calling Ray Epps a Fed. Yeah, it's a Fed calling a Fed on camera, so you don't recognize that everybody there is a Fed. Going through your comments. This is where it's at. Says, Tim, did you see the new movie based on Epstein Island, Blink Twice? No, I have not. Thanks for the lead. I'll take a look. I want to catch Megaopolis next. I think that's an important one to watch. Observing Reality says, Giant X in the movie Deadpool with tons of Terminator opening scene skulls. Fascinating. I'll have to check that out too. The Terminator is a very important character in all of this. It's a reference to Revelation 9/11. It's a reference to the nuke, the destroyer in the abyss, the thing that takes down the Titanic, the thing that takes down the Twin Towers, the thing that takes down the ISS. In other words, it's this concept for the downfall of the West and the sinking of, or the falling of the Tower of Babel. But the Terminator is a reoccurring theme or character in all of this. It's also connected to Trump and to 9/11 pretty intimately. I think we mentioned this the other day. Collateral Damages billboards with Arnie's face overlooking Ground Zero on that day. Leo Pirate says asymptomatic mind viruses. Exactly. See, we are inoculated. Mind war inoculated. It is a thing. Deprogramming is a thing. MSM is a closed system worldview. It is a cult. It is a selective interpretation of reality that the consensus is tricked, cajoled, and conditioned into accepting as the real thing. And they know some people are going to see through it, so they give them an alternate version that they find, like, this is not only a more satisfactory explanation, but it gives them a sense of purpose because now they're fighting against the system. It's brilliant. It's a trap, though, and we have figured this out. One more point. The red pill universe, just like Woketown, is triggered, agitated, and nightmarish. It's full of paranoia and fear, and it's optional. But what's the other option? To go back into the blue pill world and become apathetic? If you have a conscience, you can't do that. And they know this. They know that some people see things wrong with the world, even though these things may be fake. But they're not going to be able to just go back to sleep. That's why there's such almost some kind of an enmity between truthers and normies. Like they look down on them, like, oh, you're NPCs, you're not awake, you don't care. It's interesting to observe, but that agitation is largely unnecessary. It's just more inner war, and it's all meant to distract them, scramble their brains. You can achieve inner peace, at least with regard to the big picture and the dystopian futures they projected for us. This is where it's at. It says, Fuentes is one of them. Anybody on the world stage is one of them. There are no factions. Agreed. Agreed. They want people debating which one is a shill. And here's a simple way of looking at it. There are only two possibilities when it comes to any of these influencers. They are A, shills, or B, dupes. And you shouldn't follow either. You shouldn't follow somebody who's fooled, who's tricked, who's duped, and can't see the nature of the mental landscape, the box that they're in. If they can't see their way out of it, they're duped. They don't know how much is fake. If they can't tell between real and fake, if they are that reality compromised, if they're still throwing around phrases like false flag, then yeah, you wouldn't want to follow them anyway, whether they're intentionally misleading you or not. And please, drop spoilers, because we're here to proffer spoilers for what's going to happen on the world stage. We could care less about spoilers in their, quote, movies. "777 says, the feds always have manufactured beef storylines to keep everybody entertained. Keep them... Yeah, exactly. Nick Fuentes is one of the more obvious pose of all time. And I don't envy them. I mean, I don't feel bad for them either, but look at someone like Candace Owens, where she's going fringe and she can't even make a dent. You know, you can shoot the president and nobody's going to talk about it in 2 weeks. And here she is dropping what would be bombshell claims in especially around conspiracy theorists to talk about the stuff. This was like conspiracy candy a few years ago, but now you're like, yeah, NASA was founded by a warlock and some science fiction writer and a movie star, and they were trying to summon the Antichrist through a series of sex magic rituals. Like, that used to be entertainment. That used to be something you talk about. It would be intriguing, but now it's like it's washed away. Again, the sea of irrelevance. So what I'm saying here, though, is that she cannot be relevant by trying to go fringe. Like, the fringe within that, if you contextualize it within the mainstream, doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't make sense. It's easy to ignore. Then you have this attention economy where everyone's trying to engage, clickbait, engagement bait, rage bait, always using these tactics of bypassing critical thinking to get people's attention. And that's what it's been reduced to. That's why I don't have any desire whatsoever to curry favor with the MSM. We don't want to breathe their air. We're studying them, but we don't have to be a part of them. The parallel media concept is simply that we need to separate our content creators and our audience as a self-aware demographic, a third branch of media. We're done with alt media. We're obviously done with mainstream media. We need something separate. And now we have it. And it's going to really take off by the end of next month with the release of the Autohoax Con and the Insider. And some of the best voices on this topic will be presenting their best views and arguments in favor of this perspective. If you want to get tickets to Autohoax Con number 1, go to ips.monster. Okay, let's continue. 2020 Beirut explosion. This was the most powerful non-nuclear explosion of all time. Anybody care to guess the magnitude of that explosion? as far as the U.S. Geological Survey measuring it as a seismic event. 3.3. It had a magnitude of 3.3. Just throwing it out there. Tidbit. Another detail. Lawyer attacked by monkeys in Supreme Court finds no medicines in Apex Court Clinic. Again, I think this is right-wing rage directed against the system. The right-wing rage virus to come. Disease X. No way it's a coincidence. This is some reptilian stuff. I mean, this is very like 2005, but I'll go ahead and play it. Apparently, Nancy Pelosi, and I don't think this is AI, suggested that they need to get more reptilian. And right when she says it, the news commentator on her right has this bizarre expression and flicks her tongue like a snake.
Different from the president. We're very discreet, reptilian, cold-blooded.
Reptilian, cold-blooded. Now, I don't trust the guy who posted it. He's a clickbaiter, so this could be fake, but it sounds real.
Cold-blooded. These are the races we have to win. Others are winning the whole country. 10.
Where do you pick up 10 seats if I can?
Well, it sounds like she said it, but as has been pointed out here, the newscaster on the right, on our left, yeah, she looks very lizard-like here. And look how she's flicking her tongue.
Cold-blooded. These.
Like she's chewing on a fly. Like there's something lizardy about this woman's mouth. And yes, Nancy Pelosi did say, this is right from the PBS's site, that they need to be cold-blooded reptilian.
Discreet, reptilian, cold-blooded. These are the races we have to win.
Strange. I bet if you were there and intuitive, you would see the reptilian showing from beneath the human hologram. Okay, let's see. Apparently, Nick Fuentes, by the way, and I don't want to get too far into it because these people are gross, but I think he's sold out all of the... he's basically doxed all of his followers, the so-called gropers. Yeah, they call themselves gropers. Count Groper said, the FBI showed up at my doorstep and started asking questions. I'm still shaking. They were claiming that they got rumors that there will be acts of violence committed by America First. Now, AF, America First. That's Nick Fuentes' cult. AF-16, very January 6-y. And on January 6th, leader of AF was telling people to tear down the boundaries and get inside and take over. He goes on to say, they showed a tweet from May 30th claiming Nick Fuentes said to kill the Democrats, which he never said. I have no idea why they came after me. So the story here is that Nick Fuentes has sold out all of his members. All of their information has been handed over to the feds. And this is not the first time this type of accusation has been leveled. In fact, I think that, speaking of Candace Owens, her husband was the CEO of Parler. And Parler did the same thing. It doxed everybody. Not that it matters. I mean, I think if you're in America, I think your social security number was already handed over to hackers a few days ago. Nobody cares. A few days has passed. No attention span. Channing Tatum was the actor in Fly Me to the Moon, the terrible romantic comedy about how they faked the moon landing and Richard Nixon didn't even know. But he was asked about the flat earth. Channing Tatum has brutal 3 words for flat earthers. The actor's latest movie, Fly Me to the Moon, delves into one of the biggest conspiracy theories known to man. But there's one Tatum believes is the GOAT, and that is flat earthers, the greatest of all time. He said, this is from Unilad, as if we couldn't love this actor anymore, he went on to address the GOAT conspiracy theory and didn't hold back from unleashing his thoughts. He gave a message to the conspiracy theorists in a short but very clear 3 words. Without hesitation, Tatum responded to Flat Earth and he said, I mean, it's like, what the F? Have you ever been on a plane? What the F is going on, guys? So stupid. And he said here, go F yourself. Yes, Channing Tatum said, go F yourself. He said, flat earthers are about to be in their feelings over this one. We need more people calling idiots effing idiots. Channing Tatum keeps it real, they say. But anyhow, yeah, he said, go F yourself if you are a flat earther. Interesting. I wouldn't have expected that. I thought he would have been a little more well-disposed toward conspiracy theorists since he was in a movie that made a plausible case for the moon landing itself being a conspiracy theory. Woody Harrelson's in the movie, by the way, and he has a number of fascinating ties to conspiracy culture. I believe his father killed a judge and is alleged to be one of the 3 hobos that were detained in the wake of JFK's shooting. Interesting connections there. Channing Tatum is the star of Blink Twice, says this is where it's at. He was in Salem last week, says Jennifer Reeves, during the full experience. Well, look, he said go F yourself if you think the earth is flat. Like, what are we supposed to... Where do we go with that? I don't know. I feel like, yeah, pot's calling the kettle's black. Like, believing the moon landing is pretty bad in itself. But participating in the movie that as he did would require some level of open-mindedness. And what the flat earth represents, in my view, is not a model. Oh, the earth is flat and it's got a bowl over it. No, it's a question. The flat earth question. You know, it's like questioning God. And you're like, well, if you start questioning God, then you might realize, wait, there's different opinions on what God is. Some people think God is a giant monkey. Some people think God is some angry guy with a beard. Some people think God is the earth or whatever. And you expand your horizons as you understand different worldviews, different perspectives, and you don't have the only one. Well, Channing Tatum here is wrong-headed about it because flat earthers have gone further than most, and they're questioning the biggest modern God constructs of our time. And the globe is just one. If you ask somebody who goes that far to question the worldview presented by the space programs, you'll find that they have, just by following along the same lines of logic, they have debunked, or at least called into question, many other things that shape our worldview. Oliver says, even actors that know also probably know what will happen if they speak out, or they're just mindless puppets. Good point. I consider actors to be programmers. However, they are unwittingly programmers. They may not know. Like, I think that the system works better if most of the programmers are programmed. That if they are at all let in on anything secretive, it's on a need-to-know basis, and they're likely given a false explanation. Like, for all we know, the astronauts might not know, like, I'm talking Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong, they might not even be fully apprised of the level of fakery that they're involved in. They might be told something silly, like, oh, we can't go past the Van Allen radiation belt, so we're going to fake it. But it's real, and the space station's going to be real. And you see this type of compartmentalization where people see through certain psyops, but then they don't see through others. And it's like, you realize it's the same production company, right? The big illusion here is what appears to be the segmented or the compartmentalized and separate media. Like, it's decentralized and there are many competing agendas. The uniformity is what's hidden here. That's the big reveal, is just how monolithic this deception is. And Fly Me to the Moon is a pretty good, I guess, indicator of how they're going to respond to the moon landing or the possibility of it being debunked. Just tell people we had to fake it to trick the Russians, but it's because we wanted to win the space race, which never confronts the question of, is space travel even real? And of course, professional Moon landing debunkers like Bart Sibrel will never call into question low Earth orbit, because if there's no low Earth orbit, then what else is fake? Everything else falls. There's an infrastructure of lies that they all have to defend, and we don't. This is where it's at. It says actors are the state jesters, comedians are worse. The world stage has directors. Well, the idea they had to trick the Russians is kind of old. I mean, just an old canard. They had to trick the Russians. Give me a break. The ISS is faker than Apollo 11, but the people who debunk Apollo 11 don't look at the ISS critically. But the fact that all the different nations are participating in the international fake station shows you it is monolithic. Nobody's tricking anybody, and there's only one government to speak of. And all mankind is under mind control. There is no new world order. It's just the old one with the new paint job, new nomenclature. Nascentology, scientism replacing traditional religions, but it's the same thing. Sean Hamer says autohoaxology is a sanity restoration. Absolutely. We are repurposing skepticism, applying it specifically toward media conceived of as a monolithic presence, which it is. And we've proven this time and time again. I mean, how many times do we look at a major news event and find concurrent events in the entertainment? And these alignments are beyond the, quote, eerie coincidences. These are not synchronistic events because the artist saw the future. No, this is entrainment, the mass entrainment of the collective psyche, subconscious, the dreaming mind, the programming, the loading it full of post-hypnotic suggestions in full anticipation from their end that they're going to do these fake news events in the future, and they're going to tap into our preconceived notions that they have given us. But I'm stepping outside of it. That's what parallel media means. We're not opposing it. We're not trying to convince them that they're all being lied to. We're not trying to wake them up. We're self-segregating, quarantining. We're rising above the fray. We're conscientious objectors. That's where it starts. And there's enough of us to get this thing going, but it will metastasize. And as it expands, I think more people see the value in it. It will certainly begin to detract from the gate-kept paddock of Trutherville. "777 says, a graduated farm in which the animals graduate to becoming the farmers. Yeah, you see it all the time. Like the people who try to curry favor with the MSM, who want to fit in, who want to be alt media and just regurgitate what the big influencers are saying. It's like you're only going to end up being one of them, serving the other side by default. InkG says the best cure for full-blown mind aids is a daily dose of IPS. Oh yeah. In fact, I've been looking at various white label products that could be sold, IPS products, an IPS energy drink. And I did see, because I wanted to do B12 shots, but it's a little more difficult when you get into liquids. But I found the pill form can be white labeled. And we could sell IPS pills, B12 capsules, and advertise them as a cure for mind aids. Commenter on BitChute, Didgeridoo3 says, hey Plane, do you have any docs, pics, or vids which show or explain that Ashley Babbitt is alive? I've had no luck with this so far. Thank you very much. Cheers. Absolutely. Woo's News. WOOZ News. Woo's News. And I've heard rumors that she's living in Colorado. Ashley Babbitt. RFK is really JFK Jr. in a mask. The latest insanity from Q Street. The copium. It's pretty bad over here. They're just anything. They're grasping at straws. But now they're on this kick. RFK Jr. is JFK Jr. in a mask. And it says here, is this the way RFK Jr. has naturally aged, or are these two different people? And so you're looking at these images of RFK then and now. He said, I heard Gene Ho from George News say that when Trump gets into power, he will protect anyone who faked their death. Hence, they will not be arrested. Goes on to say, I hear there'll be no more presidents on the new earth, and no man shall rule over another. Trump said no one will live in the White House again. The new earth is led by King Jesus, and the White House is going to be destroyed. Now, we're just listening to the totally sane ramblings on Q Street, and they're looking at RFK Jr., who went on stage and shook hands with Trump, and they're saying this as an indication that JFK Jr. is coming back to save them. For people who don't know, they're saying, Gene Ho is the official photographer for Trump and the editor of George Magazine. He was the former Bruce Lee, who faked his death, along with his son, Brandon Lee. And Bruce Lee is also playing the role of President Xi. So George News' Gene Ho is the president of China, Bruce Lee, and Trump's photographer. And this is the source for a lot of this. Another totally sane person puts down his Q pipe for a moment to say, quote, them are not the same person. The eyes, nose, chin, even his bottom teeth are different. The eye colors are changed with context. I saw him in that walk that wasn't his body type. That was more of a JFK Jr. body type. This is going to be super exciting in the days and weeks to come. Yes, the point made about the masks not being removed until after the president is elected. What a great inauguration when Jr. gets to remove the mask, come forth, and tell the world the whole story for God's glory. Now you have an image of JFK Jr. Apparently he liked to pull on his pinky. And then you have this Secret Service agent who they believe is JFK Jr. in a mask, making the same hand gesture, and RFK Jr. did it too. It says, Yeppers, another Kool-Aid drinker says, many clues, patriots, they're telling us. I'm convinced now. The hand gesture is a giveaway. Goes on to say, JFK Jr.'s executive assistant at George Magazine wrote a book about him and highlighted the song by the Foo Fighters, There Goes My Hero. RFK Jr. walked out to There Goes My Hero by the Foo Fighters, which he did, and David Grohl from the Foo Fighters is going to donate royalties to Kamala Harris. Continuing, I have a hard time believing anyone wearing a mask is going to come out publicly and say, hey, everyone, I've been fooling you, pretending to be someone else, but this is who I really am now. Another more sensible voice says, personally, looking at the two photos of RFK Jr., I feel it was the bacon banana with peanut butter fried sandwiches back when he was on OxyContin for migraines, but you never know, could be a mask. Another said, this crossed my mind. How great an actor John Jr. would be to master Robert Jr.'s voice. If that was really RFK Jr. saying that speech, I feel like if Vance drops out and RFK Jr. jumps in, then we're going to have Trump Kennedy, and then JFK Jr. can take off the mask. Finally, and this is the final slide in this presentation, and they've made their case, I'm convinced. The first time RFK Jr. was live streaming and QAnoners got in the chat, they said, touch your nose if JFK Jr. is alive. And he touched his nose, as you can see here. And this is, to them, now the new JFK Jr. Okay, catching up on your comments. These QAnoners believe their own fan fiction. They're in their own universe. The Q-universe. Elephant Tusk says, apparently Roseanne Barr is now a Holocaust denier, according to her latest interview. That's a 180, because I think she used to claim that she had family members who died in it. But Roseanne Barr is a full-blown QAnoner at this point. QAnoner, and then some. But she's a comedian. Like, she can say these things and kind of walk it back later. Like, I think she said Trump was a woman, like, years ago. She is funny. I do think she's funny, but I think she's surrounded by bad people. And I'm not going to tell anyone how to live, but she's being used by a lot of far right conspiracy theorists to spread QAnon nonsense. Like, I think she's just being used. They're using her for clout. Now, where are the transvestigationists with this whole thing? Are they looking at Kamala Harris going to be the first male president? I mean, these people are so backward. They're as bad as the Q crew. Can't wait to differentiate what we're doing from that mass, that muck. I mean, it's been mud flooded. Trutherville was mud flooded a long time ago. They don't care about the truth anymore. They care about engagement bait. They've become clickbait truthers. Truthertainment. And I would have respect for it if they admitted it. Like, oh, we're just doing this for clicks. Got to pay the bills. I'd have some respect if they said, yeah, this is just parody. You know, we don't have any real issues in our lives. So what we're going to do is we're going to manufacture things to care about, like chemtrails. No, they're not going to come out and admit it. They're LARPing too hard. It's just, at this point, it's almost like they're unaware pose. Like, do you not know that you are a parody of extremism? Total lack of self-awareness. But they're getting paid for it. Apparently, a total lack of self-awareness is a way to make money. Get onto Twitter. Just become a meme. This is like, it's almost embarrassing to see people taking clips of videos, old memes, and just throwing it out there just to get clicks. In fact, there's a documentary put out recently by Tim Truth about how people become addicted to social media the way that they get addicted to slot machines. It's all about that. I think it's the intermittent reward, the variable ratio schedule, and it becomes a very toxic but unbreakable cycle. Okay, let's see here. Plain Decoded says, ever try to get people like RFK on the phone and ask him why he scratched his nose? That's what annoys me about these types. What annoys me is that they allow people to run with misconceptions and they never correct them. Like, if there was a rumor going around that I was somebody I'm not, I would be the first one to correct it. But these guys are riding on the coattails of people that they're sort of impersonating, but not directly. Like Bob Joyce pretends to be Elvis. Edward X is JFK Jr. Negative 48 pretended to be JFK Jr. until he was called out. 107 pretended to be JFK Jr. Vincent Fuchsia hasn't denied being JFK Jr. in a John Denver mask. Like, none of them come out to deny it. They're just gonna passively let people spread these rumors because what? Groupies? Donos? There must be some payoff. N.A. Literalist said, Lynn said Trump was a woman. Look, I don't believe Trump was a woman because there's no way at 60 he gave birth to that Nephilim Baron. Yes, if you want to join the Discord, go to ips.monster. 777 says Trump is a Baphomet. Elephant Tusk says, A.G. Merrick Garland just threatened anyone who may contest the results of the election, using J6 political prisoners as an example. Well, there weren't any J6 political prisoners, so question away, contest away. You're not going to get locked up in a cell with the QAnon shaman. That guy never went to a cell. He went to some camp to learn how to be a little more mediagenic, and he becomes the host of InfoWars. And he spouts David Icke level New Age trutherisms. It's totally an act. The whole dressing up like a buffalo, those tattoos. It's such a... those tattoos are likely just deep cover. They might not be fake, but he probably really does smell like roadkill. Wayne Dion said, what happened to that Axel guy with the countdowns? Yeah, I was so sick of Axel and his beard and his nose hairs and his beanies and his obsession with taking selfies. Axel's like this old Santa Claus looking guy who some believed is JFK Jr. with a beard. And he would just pose for pictures. And he would pretend to know more than he knows. That's what's so annoying about QAnoners. They pretend to know, or they pretend to be in the know. And it's all really nothing more than a big Ponzi scheme. Invest all your social capital. Invest all your credibility. Throw it all in here because the Great Awakening's coming, and you're going to be able to tell all your friends and family, former family, I told you so. They're going to come to you now. Hey, you were right. You were correct. JFK Jr. is saving us. This is the Great Awakening. The deep state traffics children. Democrats drink blood. Can you catch us up? Fill us in. We should have listened to you at Thanksgiving in 2019. Like, I'm sorry, truthers, you're never going to be vindicated. Ever. Bach Precision says the threats of imprisonment seem like empty bluffs. It scares people. I was an advocate for FEMA camping ourselves back in this when this channel started. I said, so many of these people are afraid of being put into FEMA camps because of what they say on the internet. Like, oh, I think NASA's a liar. They're going to throw you in a FEMA camp? Like, what could be better than that? So I suggested, let's all get thrown into a FEMA camp and meet each other, make friends, gather our facts, consolidate our interpretations of things. Let's figure out what's really going on. Like, that would be the best thing that could possibly happen to us. So with that in mind, we created the FEMA camp, the Flat Earth Music and Art Festival, where we did just that. And a lot of people were mad. They were triggered. They said, you shouldn't brand it FEMA camp. They were so scared. They were so terrified. But we took the fear out of it. Like, nope, nobody's going to get locked up. Anyone who does is likely a shill. And whatever happened to that whistleblower who was who's persecuted? What's his name? Snowden. The guy with the #1 Amazon bestseller. Did he ever mention hoaxes, psyops, crisis actors, fake space? I don't think so. What about that other whistleblower that everyone was worshiping, the wiki guy? The Assange, Julian Assange. Did he ever mention fake news, crisis actors, psyops, fake space? What about Project Veritas? Did they ever figure out that there were 2 decades of fake shootings? Like, it seems like none of these whistleblowers or independent journalists or reporters ever get to the bottom of anything. Okay, let's move on. We still have about 10 minutes here. Mick West on Chemtrail Kennedy. Yeah, okay, now, we all know about, and I've heard some stranger stories now. There's something about JFK Jr. in an RFK Jr. mask and dead animals, like sawing the heads off of sharks. Here's one where he found a dead bear and ate it. Yeah, here it is. So we've all heard these stories about the dead bear and how he had left a dead bear in Central Park, and it was this unsolved mystery for like a decade, and they recently solved it. So anyway, he's perfectly fine finding a dead bear on the side of the road and eating it. But he's terrified of flu shots. Well, here's RFK Jr. talking to his friend here, Dane Wigington, about Geoengineering Watch.
You know, my mind is open to this is because
his mind is open because he has brain worms from eating roadkill.
Woody Harrelson one time was at my house and he was talking about this. This was probably 10 years ago. And I was saying, come on, that's ridiculous. That's impossible. And he said, come outside with me. And we went outside and we sat on a hillside and we watched these planes fly in a grid pattern, laying out this, a grid of contrails, and then it turned into clouds and we had a cloudy day. And I don't know.
Now, I'm not going to explain this. I think you all know about faulty causality and cirrus clouds, anthropogenic cirrus clouds, and what came first, the conditions conducive to persistent trails, or did the trails create the persistent clouds? Well, no. You wouldn't have those persistent stratospheric clouds without the conditions that enable them to exist, the temperature and the pressure and everything. So no, the trails are an indicator of the conditions above. They don't cause it. Faulty causality. But anyway, he's falling for it because they're supposed to. It's a libertarian thing. It's a right-wing conspiracy theorist thing. Ron Paul supporters used to spray vinegar from little squirt bottles at the clouds. Like, this kookiness is not new. And it's just as bad as climate change, the climate change maniacs. But anyway, continuing.
And I don't know, I've looked up many times since then and seen that happening. And I don't have a good explanation for it, but the thing.
That's an argument from ignorance, another logical fallacy. I don't have an explanation for it. Well, I can't figure out how my iPhone works. I mean, it's magic to me. It's not my forte. I don't know that much about it. I could probably learn, but for the most part, I just use it as a tool. But because I don't know how it works, I don't assume it's not known. It's a mystery. Nobody knows. No, I recognize there are experts who would be able to tell me. So for him to say, I don't know what it is ridiculous. And he flies a lot. He knows pilots. You don't think he could ask one of them? Like, it is because the conditions at 30,000 feet are in no way similar to the conditions down here on the ground. It's easy to explain, but this is either deliberate, calculated ignorance to pander to his ignorant base, or he doesn't know. But regardless, Mick West had made a comment on it, and I was asking, are chemtrails deadlier than rotten bear meat? Sean Hamer says what his voice. The voice, it happened when he was 42. The same age his father was when his father was assassinated by Saran, who had a copy of Catcher in the Rye, which could suggest, if you read the subtext to Catcher in the Rye, that it was some kind of a Masonic hit. But at 42, he developed this this condition. I think it's called. Let me find it. No, if it's JFK Jr., then he's obviously like a really, really good actor. I think it's spasmodic dysphonia or something. But yeah, he picked it up at 42. What caused it, I don't know. Now, speaking of bears, this article just came out. Group plans to file suit over Beartaria. This is getting insane because I've been following this cult of Beartaria haters. Owen Benjamin has a cult of haters, 6,000 people on Reddit. So he's made some enemies, apparently. But now nearly 40 of them have formed together to file a class action lawsuit claiming that there's some kind of a bait and switch where they were, and I don't know, I'm just reading the article here. It seems like people voluntarily donated chunks of their stimmy checks in order to have some collective campground, but there were some zoning issues, so it wasn't fulfilled perfectly. But whatever the case, it said, the class action lawsuit claims land fraud perpetrated by Owen Benjamin following the purchase of a 10-acre riverfront haven on Earl Lane. It says he paid for it with crowdfunding, accepting a $400 donation in exchange for unlimited access to Beartaria. He offered his bears a variety of descriptions about what they could do there. Back to the land gathering, gardening, full-on survival training with weapons for the end times or the crash of society, whatever came first. Except for a couple working weekends when people came in from across the nation to build 6 dry cabins, those lining up to participate in the suit say none of the promises have been fulfilled, and requests for refunds have been met with intimidation, harassment, and the former Hollywood comic pulled a bait and switch. Now, there's a few more interesting points in here. It's a developing story, but that's the gist of it. Then there gets to be a little bit more, and it has to do with some comedy special where there was a breach of contract alleged by Adam Camacho, who claims that he filmed a comedy special and wasn't compensated, and there's some dispute there. So there's a couple of lawsuits here, and a lot of people piling up on this situation. The only reason I know who this person is he was a Flat Earth Conference speaker. And at that time, his Beartaria project was being criticized by the Daily Beast. they said it was going to be the next Ruby Ridge. And I thought, that's interesting. This was the same conference where the Daily Beast looked into us and said that our Discord server was the information equivalent of clear-cutting a forest. But this Owen Benjamin thing is timed with the Andrew Tate thing, with the Nick Fuentes thing, with the Candace Owen thing. In other words, it's part of this far-right fringe infrastructure being put through some kind of a controlled demolition. That's what it looks like to me. Controlled demolition. Skyfish says, if I'm not mistaken, Tracy Twyman was loosely connected to Cap. She supposedly channeled Baphomet or Lucifer in her words and then mysteriously died. Well, how could you channel Baphomet or Lucifer? These are two different fictional characters. I mean, Lucifer is largely a literary construct. Baphomet is a symbol. It's a combination, man, beast, angel, with some arcana thrown in there just to tie together the idea of the Hermetic philosophy, as above, so below. But it was never a person. Like, you don't, oh, somebody has to go feed the Baphomet. It's not some goat creature. You know, it was never some god or deity, some entity. No. It's a totem. Burning Man attendee dies on the first day of the 2024 festival today. Interesting. Now, I have a lot of information on the Burning Man thing we should look into. Like, for example, the 33rd Burning Man had a 33-year-old die there in Black Rock City. A woman has died at Burning Man after being found unresponsive. I want to see if we have any more information. Black Rock City. Now, last year they got hit with the mud flood. And if you recall, it was 666 days after the Astro World crushing deaths. Or death by auto-tune. Whatever. I think Travis Scott killed them with his auto-tune. August 25th at 11:37 a.m. Okay, we'll find out. Thank you for that tip. Mike KLA sent this to me. Heaven adds guardrail after fifth angel plunges over the edge. This is obviously a reference to the guardrail, the term that we use here, to describe what most truthers call gatekeeping. But gatekeeping isn't accurate enough. A guardrail makes a lot more sense as I describe it. But this is notable to me too because The Onion is going back into print. And we're going into print. I have a few issues from some previous prototypes for what's going to be our official tabloid, but The Onion going out into print is a good sign. I think there is a demand for it. I have a lot of reasons why, but I'm not going to share that information. We don't want to give our competition any ideas. Elephant Tusk says, a lot of these entities reside in the astral realm. I got a question. Is the astral plane flat? Because they call it the astral plane. And I've got a book here called Power of the Witch by Laurie Cabot. I picked it up last year. And I'm going through it. And it has this meditation where it and let me check the year, because this must have been out in the 70s or 80s. The intro to the book is by Whitney Strieber. Whitney Strieber is the guy who popularized the idea of alien abductions and probing. That's from Whitney Strieber, who is the guy who co-wrote The Coming Global Superstorm with Art Bell. 1989. But anyway, it has this meditation where you're above the Earth and you see the planets and you see the galaxies. And I just have to wonder how valid that is. Like, do people think they're traveling out of their body and then they see what they've been conditioned to see? Are they, like, if you were truly a remote viewer, you could answer the flat earth question for us. Just do it. Remote view it and let us know. Is it a frisbee in space? Is it an endless plane? Or is it a damn ball? Like, we should be able to get some verification, but no remote viewers have been able to fill me in on that. Elephant Tusk says geography is non-existent in the astral. I'm kind of with you on that. Yeah, Whitney Schreiber was Art Bell's co-author in that book, and he was a frequent guest. I actually like a lot of Whitney Schreiber's books. I think 2012 War for Souls was good. Had all kinds of Robert Anton Wilson connections. 23 chapters. In fact, in that book, War for Souls, Whitney Schreiber, Ann Coulter was like the top reptilian. War for Souls, 2012. Yeah, Ann Coulter was in this one. A mysterious alien presence bursts out of sacred sites all over the world and begin to rip human souls from their bodies. So it has these flying saucers going through neighborhoods, and like the Pied Piper, people are led out of their homes, and there's these like light tethers, and they're taken into these churches, and basically their souls are harvested. Very interesting book. Again, 2012 War for Souls. If you haven't read it. Jennifer Reeve says, I was just at Lori Cabot's shop in Salem last week. Oh, interesting. Okay. Well, this book is incredible all around. I've learned a lot from it. It's an older book, and I find that the newer books in this genre are, I don't know, seems like a lot of them kind of have a slightly different agenda. Not all of it leans that way, but there's a lot of ecofeminism. But here, a lot of it just, it's the history of magic, an explanation of magical philosophy, and some of the basic concepts. And here we are studying media and the area where there is some intersection between mediation and what we call magic, or however it's defined by various schools of thought. And the more I look into it, the more I see some pretty clear indicators that, and it wouldn't be an exaggeration, that the world is run by witches and warlocks. J.P. Morgan said it. Millionaires don't practice astrology, but billionaires do. But I like to read about this stuff and understand the different models, because I'm not convinced that we're in a dead corpse universe grinding to a halt, that we're a bunch of over-evolved apes with big egos trying to act like we matter. Because I think we do matter, and that we are integral to this place. I don't think we're objects on objects, but rather the universe, in my opinion, again, I don't know for sure, but in my opinion, and the only way any of the stuff I've experienced could make sense is if I'm right in this, that the universe doesn't exist until we experience it. That it doesn't even make sense to speak of it as an object, or as a, like, not that it can change, but that I think that it's co-experienced and co-created. Like, I don't think it's as linear as we're programmed to believe, or as we perceive it. Not that it's 100% malleable. I don't believe in law of attraction. I think that's kind of a fad, but it doesn't work that way. Not quite. But I do think there is some element of truth in that, and it has to do with more like concentration, focus, intention, and attention. And there's something about the connection between our imagination and the yet to be manifest reality, and that our imagination may actually be an interface for directly communicating with the universe, which would explain a whole lot about the controller's obsession with keeping everybody's minds focused on their ideas, their symbols, their concepts. But I think there is something to it. Like, there's a deeper meaning behind the mind entrainment than merely propagandizing us for political purposes. Like, I think that's one layer, but I think it definitely goes much deeper. But belief doesn't create reality in that sense. Otherwise, moon landings would be real. January 6th would be real. 9/11 would have been real planes hitting real buildings, you see, because the dominant majority believe in it. So we can't even make that argument. That's what I mean when I say law of attraction is mostly fake. But there is something to intent and programming yourself, programming your own cognitive bias, which can become something of self-fulfilling prophecy. But that doesn't go far enough to explain what appears to be the ability of the sentient, the conscious being to manipulate probability or influence events or even be the causal agent behind what we experience as synchronicity. But that's a whole other realm of discourse. But if it is true, if there is anything to it, you wouldn't know if your mind was always entrained to a false worldview. You would be desynchronized with nature. You wouldn't be able to have those synchronicities. I saw this pretty good quote. In fact, I think I'm putting it in the first issue of The Insider, and it was by Bill Hicks. And he said, watching TV is like taking black spray paint to your third eye. Let me see if I can find that one. Yeah, watching television is like taking black spray paint to your third eye, Bill Hicks. And the third eye, the concept here, of course, is the mind of the, rather the, when I think of the third eye, I think of the subconscious, the totality of your perceptions that maybe has bypassed or went unnoticed by your ego, your filter, your conscious awareness, but you may have a greater awareness about anything, and your intuition may be able to guide you to answers. But if you shut off your intuition, if you are convinced there is no such thing, you might actually, if you're so entrained by the mass deception, yeah, you may as well have just sprayed black paint over your third eye. Okay, this has been great. I wish we had more time. I'll take some calls. Plain to code, it says, the programming manipulates the mass subconscious to repress itself, so we must take control of our own thoughts and program ourselves and get rid of self-limiting beliefs. Yeah, I'm all for that. I'm all for that. I'm very agnostic about the idea of limits. I really am. In fact, I'm even an auto-hoaxer with regard to death itself. I don't trust the official explanations, and I don't think there's a loss of continuity of awareness. I think it might be better described as a kind of like a tuning out, but anyway, separate conversation, but maybe not. Because eventually you get to a point where these things do intersect. And you would be remiss if you didn't bring up the subject of magic, given how much of the various psyops have overtly trappings of magic and the occult. So obviously there's something there. But you can't figure it out by only reacting to what's on the screen. You have to dig deeper. Like I often say, normies are at a magic show, sitting in their seats, being tricked by everything, but they take it literally and think it's all real. The skeptics are the ones walking around and going backstage and reading their books. And that's where I'm at now. I'm doing deep dives. And if you want to be involved in deep dives, before we go here, and I'll make all this stuff very clear and accessible as we go forward. But one of the things that I'm focusing on now is getting anybody who has a press pass involved, if they want to be, activating the IPR Press Club. So if you have any concepts for deep dives, and emperor penguins are the deepest diving of all birds, or IPR insider stories, or if you want to be involved in an existing investigation, just contact me at timosmond.org. And I set up a crowdfund for this purpose as well, and I'll be promoting this more as time goes on. But we have a track record of successfully funding events, operations, PR stunts, and original content. So each month, the money raised will be directed towards the content creators. This may include camera crew, production costs, gasoline, whatever it happens to be. But the IPS Insider goes into print next month. Well, the digital version on the 1st. So now would be a time if you want to be involved. If you want to be assigned stories or present story ideas, you can make it all happen. Just go to the Discord server. And I've set up a crowdfund, which I think will get more support as we demonstrate what we can do. And we have done a lot so far as a collective, as a group. And as far as our street cred, well, I believe we did dox one of the most famous or infamous actors on the world stage. Not just calling out a crisis actor, but rather showing or revealing a operative behind the scenes. But if you go to that website, and I'll put a link below. It has a contact form, breaking news, tips, or do you have an article to submit? And above that, I have a link to the IPS Insider where it will be downloadable on the first. So the digital version will be free. The print version will be available as I can. Okay, appreciate all the comments. We'll continue this conversation tomorrow. I think I had one more video here. We'll get to that tomorrow. I'm going through. We started off today talking about Megaopolis, which begins with a Russian satellite, and I was just showing you how the trailer has the Russian satellite breaking apart behind the Statue of Liberty, and it talks about the death of the empire. And I've connected Megaopolis and this empire to the fall of the Tower of Babel, or the West, and it's not a coincidence then that the ISS astronauts had to take shelter because of an exploding Russian satellite as that movie hits the film festivals, and it begins with a Russian satellite. The movie has 9/11 predictive programming and connections already built into it. All of this connects to the movie ISS, with Russia and America fighting for control over the space station. We talked about Disease X, the Monkey God, Project X, and how the Rage virus is going to be the mind virus that will get the public to agree that we need to shut down the internet for a time and enforce mind masking. And the public's going to agree. That's an integral part of this. They want everybody to agree that this is a necessary evil. We're going to lock down the internet because so many of these people are popping off. And they've already set the stage for this narrative last year with Robert Card. And it was one of the worst mass shootings was that in Michigan or Maine? And we connected this, that was in Maine, 40-year-old Robert Card. This whole story was basically mentally ill. In fact, his brain showed signs of mental illness. I guess they did an autopsy. Brain injury. So he had brain injury he got during military drills. And then he had to go shoot a bunch of people up. But this was after he went on Twitter and fell into a, quote, Twitter bubble. So he caught the rage virus. So that's the next Illuminati playing card. Yep, Lean Dion, Statue of Liberty, ISS at Paris Olympics tie-in as well. And I had that bizarre synchronicity of opening a book by Salman Rushdie, who was stabbed after that 33-year fatwa on his head, and it was up to $3.3 million. So I opened the book, and he's talking about how he was staring at the moon, and he was thinking of the image of a trip to the moon with a bullet in the right side, in the right eye of the moon. He writes about that, and he has a picture of it in the book. The only picture in the book is the moon with a bullet in the eye, which was an image that was also part of the Paris Olympics opening. And he said, little did I know that the next day I would have an injury in the same eye. We've just been running across so many examples. And that is that a synchronicity? Or is it just another indicator of the immersive programming? I mean, it's kind of hard to say. When Maui got zapped, I go into a Walmart and it's floor-to-ceiling boxes of Maui Blast Do, direct energy weapon. I was like, wow, that predictive programming is on everything. It's probably on the cereal boxes. All right, this is Auto Hoaxology by Symbia. Thank you for joining. We'll continue this tomorrow.
I don't believe in chemtrails. I don't live in Truthville. Just because you saw it on the screen doesn't make it real. I don't take the red pill. I don't take the blue pill. I just choose to follow my dreams. Auto hoax and chill. I stepped off the world stage and I've moved away from all the fake outrage and the hearsay. And I don't give the time of day to those that naysay, because they got a bad case of the mind day. I stepped away from the game entirely. I won't be caught up in their lame dichotomy. I stepped away from the cage entirely. I'm free today and my mind's been set by reading Auto Hoaxology. Out of the control system finally. I know where to go if you follow me, 'cause I've been reading Auto Hoaxology. Nothing can bother me. Auto Hoaxology. Won't put the screen before it's blasphemy. I won't become another of the auto-believer to become a new creation on the raft of receiver. Standing on the sword of truth, I stabbed the backs of deceiver, demanding burdens further proof from all the hacks and believers. I stepped away from the game entirely. I won't be caught up in the lame dichotomy. I stepped away from the cage entirely. I'm free today and my mind's been saved by reading auto-hoaxology. Out of the control system finally. I know where to go if you follow me. Cause I've been reading auto-hoaxology. Nothing can bother me. Auto-hoaxology. Won't put the screen before it's blasphemy. I won't become another mind war casualty. I came up out the realm of possibility to take the helm of this reality. Cause I've been chillin' reading auto-hoaxology. Suspending all the judgment, you won't get a reaction. Won't defend it, I won't budge until I get all the facts in. I won't argue with the bots about the next current thing.